are at the state capitol in Des Moines, and we've been lobbying all day to get a moratorium on factory farms in Iowa. Iowa is big ag sacrifice zone. We are doing a moratorium now rally here at the Capitol building in the Rotunda, and it's just started. So we're going to turn the camera around, and then I think I'm going to speak in a few minutes.
And then there's also another bill that's going to convene a committee to re-look at the master matrix. So right before I got elected, I went to a committee meeting. It was a DNR meeting here at the Capitol, and it was representatives, supervisors from Calhoun County. And basically what happened was there was a hog lot going in Calhoun County, and they wanted to impose some more restrictions on the hog lot as far as location, other factors. They just weren't able to do it. And the DNR committee was unable to grant them any sort of a waiver or anything because our law just doesn't allow for it. The master matrix cannot be changed. So since, Republican county supervisors were up here and they couldn't even get it done, how can an average county supervisor or an average person in Iowa do anything? The answer is you can't. So it's not a fair system. I'm not saying that all hog farms should close up and go away and leave Iowa. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that it needs to be a fair process for the people who live here and to guard our quality of life that we all hold so dear. So thank you for having me today, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Senator Selcy. So next up, we've got someone that Senator Selcy just mentioned, Representative Sharon Stegman, who is our sponsor in the House. Representative.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you. What I really appreciate seeing today is it's not just one group that's here, it's several groups. And the more I talk to people out in rural Iowa, they want to be heard. They want to be heard. They worry about their water. They worry about their air. In 2002, several legislators got together. There were 12 of them. And they put together a committee to make the master matrix. The committee met, and in 2003, passed it through administrative rules. It was never voted on by the legislature. So in 2003, the master matrix they began using it, and the passing score was set at 50%. In 2003, there were 700 confined animal feeding operations, swine. This past year, there's 18,596. So my point is with this bill, the moratorium bill, House File 203, it's to have a conversation. That's all I want to do with this bill. Anything we pass in the legislature that was passed in 2002, sometimes it might need a conversation. This was not even passed. This is an administrative rule. So let's just sit down, all interested parties, the farmers on all sides of this issue, the residents on all sides of this issue. Let's just sit down and have a conversation. The EPC, the DNR, and 25 counties have said, please do something about this master matrix. Sit down and talk about it and solve this problem for our state. So I really think it's upon us, legislators, to do something about it. At least start the conversation. Thank you. I'm not an original Iowan, but I've been here over 40 years, and I'm a lot older than some of the people here, some of the young folks that are fighting for this. What I want to do is make Iowa the place that young people want to come back to. I want them to come and trout fish, which is $1 billion business in this state. But we're building some of these facilities right near the karst, right near an area where that could bleed down into the water. So I just think we need to talk about it and have some guidelines. I'll go back to quality of life. That's kind of my issue is I want kids to be able to come back to Iowa and say, you know what, this is a great state. I want to live out in the country. I can do my job out in the country. But I don't want them to worry about the price of their house going down because something moves in next to them. I visited a couple in April that moved out in the country just to be out in the country, and something was built near, a capo was built near their property. We couldn't talk outside. The flies were so bad. So I want that quality of life for all Iowans, and that's why I think we need to start the conversation. I have a video here, and I know Sustainable Agriculture put it out. Some of you are familiar with it. If you're not, please watch it. It's about a beautiful, beautiful part of Iowa called the Driftless Zone, the Driftless area. It's called Decoding the Driftless. I know some of you are shaking your heads, you've seen it. So please try and see that if you can. It points to some beautiful things we have in Iowa that I really want to preserve. So thank you for being here, and keep talking, keep working. Bring people some facts, bring people some stories that will help us move this forward. And we can start having a conversation, at least get everybody to the table. It's so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Stegman. Representative Stegman's been a critical ally in the House. She's helped us organize over 20 supporters in the House for House File 203, and so we're going to continue working with her and our allies in the State House, Senator Selsey as well in the Senate. We look forward to continuing working with her. But now for one of the community members that Representative Stegman was talking about, we're going to hear from Bart Koba, a family farmer and Iowa CCI member from Adair County. Bart?
Hi, my name's Bart Kaba. I'm a fourth-generation family farmer from Adair County, Iowa, the #1 county in Iowa. I'm also a proud member of Iowa CCI Action Fund. In 1995, the Iowa legislature passed House File 519, a bill that allowed for the establishment of confined animal feedlot operations, or what we now call factory farms. Until that time, individual family farmers raised herds or flocks of livestock individually and marketed them individually. To support these farmers, small towns had feed stores, feed salesmen, livestock equipment stores, veterinarians, buying stations, sale barns, and more. These businesses hired local people. Revenues were kept local and spent local. Small towns and rural schools thrived. Since the establishment of factory farming in 1995, we have watched our family farms and our small towns wither. We have watched our countryside empty out. There is no longer a need for a feed salesman, or a feed store, or a livestock equipment store, or a buying station, very few veterinarians, and very few sale barns. So, where do local people go to work? Well, they generally go to the nearest city or large town, in my case, Des Moines. So, revenues are no longer kept local, and they're no longer spent local. But don't farmers still raise livestock, you may want to know? Well, yes, they do. They just don't own the livestock. The big corporations now own most of the livestock. Smithfield Foods, owned by China nonetheless, raises 25% of the U.S. pork produced in our nation. No, I don't like it. JBS, which is owned by Brazil, raises another 25% of the pork produced in the United States. Here in Iowa, two of the big owners are Prestige Farms and Iowa Select. They raise a goodly number of our pork, and then there's the chickens, which are owned by corporations, and the eggs. In my locality, Roseacre Farms supplies a lot of eggs. There's cattle to a lesser extent and large feedlots, but not so much. So that's been since about 22, 24 years ago. So what price has Iowa paid for this business model? Well, I've already identified the price that rural Iowa has paid for this business model, but the elephant in the room is the manure that's produced in huge, concentrated amounts every year. 24 billion gallons of liquid manure goes on Iowa soil every year. Mother Nature, my husband told me once, who was a farmer, can only handle so much. And I think that sums it up pretty good. And how do I know that? What's the proof of that? Well, in 2002, it was 7 years after House File 519, and Iowa had 212 impaired waterways from nutrient runoff. That's been 17 years ago. Has that been managed? No. So today, Iowa now deals with 750 impaired waterways from nutrients created by more than 10,000 factory farms and growing. Now, what does that mean to you? Well, as a water drinker, which I think most of you are, that means increased cleaning costs to make water usable for people. And that's tacked onto our water bill. It shows up when we want to go fishing, or swimming, or camping in Iowa's lakes, or Iowa's parks. So this is what I want to say today to the Iowa legislature who drags their feet at any kind of control over factory farming or runoff. And that is, they need to understand that there is no red water, there is no blue water, there is only clean water and dirty water. Clearly, the factory farm model of growing livestock is a flawed model. We need a moratorium today on the further construction of factory farms. We need to say time out until we can see and assess the overall impact of factory farms on our state and in our communities. Are you with me? Moratorium now! Moratorium now! Moratorium now! Moratorium now! Moratorium now! Moratorium now! That's good, you guys.
All right, thank you, Barb. Okay. So where we're at today at the Iowa Capitol, at the confluence of the Des Moines and Raccoon Rivers, we have to recognize before our state was proliferating with factory farms, before we were here, today we're standing on stolen land. And to hear more perspective about the impact of factory farms, we're welcoming Nobiss from Seeding Sovereignty.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for doing this. This is amazing. My name is Nobiss with Seeding Sovereignty. I'm Plains Cree Saulteaux from the George Gordon First Nation in Saskatchewan, and I've been living in Iowa for 13 years now. And I've seen what Big Ag has done here. Iowa is Big Ag's sacrifice zone. Absolutely 100%. Iowa is a reflection of what Big Ag is doing all over the world, and Big Ag is a massive contributor to climate change and environmental destruction. You've all heard the facts, the same things I was going to speak about, the 750 impaired waterways. We are the #1 contributor to the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Before settler invaders came to Iowa and genocided the people out, there was farming going on here, actually. It was a very different way of farming that was compatible with sustainability and regenerative. Corn was actually grown here. It's been grown here for 1,200 years at least, but it was grown in a very different way. It wasn't monocropped. It was grown in conjunction with other plants that created a healthy harvest and that rejuvenated the soil for the next time that the plants were put back in the earth. I think it's really important to note that there was a healthy way of living on this soil before Big Ag took over 90% of the land here. I'm really impressed with what the Meskwaki Nation is doing with Red Earth Gardens. It's a CSA type situation where they are growing healthy first fruits and getting it out to their communities. I love to see what these small groups are doing all over the state, like SILT and these family-owned CSAs, because in actuality, they are doing what Indigenous people did a long time ago. There was a quote by a famous quote from, I think it's a Nez Perce Native American person that said, "Why would I cut into the breast of my mother?" And he was talking about tilling. And now there's this no-till thing going on. And so we've been saying these things for a long time, and it's high time that people listen to what Indigenous people had to say. I'd like to see, in actuality, really, one day I'd like to see this prairie restored, and I'd like to see the buffalo back here. I'd love to be able to sequester carbon with the tallgrass prairie. It's a very feasible project, and people could still make money off of that. I would love to see more talk with farmers in the Green New Deal, because I think right now what the Green New Deal is lacking is very coherent and extensive talks with Indigenous people and farmers, the two groups of people, in my opinion, that really have a connection to the land and see what's going on firsthand. So that's actually one of my goals. I've been bird dogging candidates as they come through the state, and my question for them is, if you were to get elected, what would you do in terms of the Green New Deal with all this legislation that would be passed? Would Indigenous people be at the table? Would it not just be, consultation without consent, like usual? Could we actually become really the actual sovereign nations here and control our land and not have it be extracted? I would love to see the Indigenous people move forward on these wonderful hemp projects and these buffalo restoration projects all over the country, and that includes Iowa, and that includes moving away from factory farms. You guys, I don't know if you know, but pigs are not from here. Pigs were introduced by the conquistadors. They brought disease with them. They killed many nations before they were even touched or invaded by humans. They destroyed land bases where crops were they ate the crops that people were growing. And so it's a really ironic twist now that these animals that created havoc on this land during the settler-invader colonial genocide are now themselves going through their own genocide in these factory farms. That is not a way for an animal to live. That is not a way for any being to live. The suffering that is going on in these CAFOs is unimaginable. And it hurts me. It breaks my heart to imagine what's going on there. And not only are these animals sick, but they are making the rest of us sick by the way we are treating them. So I want to end by recognizing that there were many nations, 28 nations that still have sacred ties to the land here in Iowa that inhabited this area before colonial farming practices took over. There, of course, is the Meskwaki and the Omaha that still have very significant ties here that are in this state. But there was the Dakota, the Lakota, the Santee, the Omaha, the Winnebago. I mean, there was many other tribes that were once part of this land, and of course the Iowa, which this state is named after. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. Please keep doing what you're doing, because by uniting and working together, we will make a difference.
All right, thank you, Christine. All right, now we're going to welcome up Diane Rosenberg, co-founder of the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture. Diane?
Thank you. What we're hearing today is a sampling of the way factory farms may impact both rural and urban communities in every corner of the state. This is not a small issue to many Iowans. This is a huge issue to neighbors of factory farms who have to live with the stench. It's also a costly issue for those who may also suffer poor health as a result of breathing in the toxic gases and particulates that fans blow out of those buildings. It's an enormous issue when it comes to our polluted waters, a threat to drinking water and public health, and a $4 billion cleanup effort at best. And this is a rural and an urban problem. It's also a serious issue and a threat to independent family farmers who continue to be pushed off the land in droves from the pressures of going up against the powerful influence of the corporate livestock industry. And frankly, that's a sad commentary on the state of agriculture in Iowa today. Iowans across the state recognize that we have a factory farming crisis, and Iowans are fed up. That's why the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture formed 4 years ago. We are a coalition of 31 community, state, and national organizations representing tens of thousands of Iowans. Our coalition members work with communities all across the state, and we see firsthand how Iowans are struggling with the numerous and often debilitating impacts of factory farming. These impacts are documented in over 50 years of scientific peer-reviewed studies. We see a lot of suffering. That's why the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture supports Representative Sharon Stegman's House File 203 and Senator Claire Celsey's companion bill enacting a factory farm moratorium. We thank them and all the co-sponsors for responsibly stepping up to address the serious problems we face from factory farms. Our coalition supports responsible agricultural practices that don't harm people or the environment. An agricultural system that will return more livestock farmers to the land, not drive them off. We need a factory farm moratorium to take a break from business as usual, to assess and repair the way we raise livestock, and to create a food system that benefits all Iowans. We urge all state legislators to join in and support House File 203 and the Senate companion bill to enact a factory farm moratorium now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Diane. Okay, we've got 2 speakers left, and I'm really excited to welcome our next speaker. You probably know him, but Bill Stowe is the Des Moines Waterworks CEO and General Manager. Bill, come on up here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your energy. Thanks for your concern about public health in Iowa. I'm going to be really clear. Industrial agriculture does not feed the world. CAFOs do not feed the world. They poison their neighbors. Iowa continues to go down a road where it looks more and more like a sacrifice state. Just like West Virginia was a sacrifice, its communities, its jobs, its public health, its environment to coal, we are looking like a sacrifice state to industrial agriculture and CAFOs. Meanwhile, the agro-elites, the farm bureaus, the Smithfields, the Monsantos, the corn growers, the Soybean Association, tell us, don't worry, be happy. The nutrient reduction strategy and your environmental protection are being preserved. The nutrient reduction strategy is a failure. You've spent hundreds of millions of your dollars and taken us nowhere except deeper into a hole where we look like a sacrifice state. My message to you is thank you again for being here. Thank you for your sense of urgency. Your sense of urgency needs to go out from this circle to people who vote in this state, to people who are involved in local, state, and national offices, to move forward with the idea of moratorium now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That's right. He's definitely doing well, yeah, you have our support for sure. So one speaker to close it out today, I'm excited to welcome up to the mic Emma Schmidt from Food and Water Watch. Emma.
All right. How's everybody doing today? Sweet. Thank you all for coming out. I am Emma Schmidt. I'm the Iowa organizer for Food and Water Watch. I know my friends in the crowd will find this hard to believe, but I've got a lot to say today. And unfortunately, I only have 2 minutes to say it, so we're diving right in. So we all know factory farms are bad. We know they pollute our waterways. We know the economic, societal, and public health issues that impact our communities. We know they shove independent family farmers out of business. We know all of this. We wouldn't be here today if each and every one of us hadn't been impacted by factory farms in some way or another. Fortunately, we have a number of legislators that have been willing to listen and take bold action against factory farms. So I want to give a big, big, big thank you to the 14 representatives willing to sign on and support this moratorium legislation. You guys help me? All right. Of course, we need a massive thank you to Representative Steckman for introducing the House bill. All right, that's enough. That's enough. I only have 2 minutes up here, guys. All right, so moving right along. I know I just told you all to stop clapping, but it was a farce. All right, we got to give a huge round of applause, but since most of you have signs in your hands, we can also accept snaps, whistles, and cheers to Senator Claire Seltzer for filing a moratorium bill in the Senate. The bill is currently circling around gaining co-sponsors, so once we have an official bill, be sure to thank all of the Senate co-sponsors. Now that we've got the festivities out of the way, yeah, that was the fun part, everybody. I'm sorry. We can get down to business. You know and I know that we aren't going to get a moratorium on factory farms without putting in some hard work. Right now, our House bill is stuck in committee. That ain't right. You are right. The chair of the Environmental Protections Committee, Representative Dean Fisher, is refusing to assign the bill to subcommittee. That ain't right. We doubled the number of support on the bill this year. We know folks are out there talking to their legislators about Iowa's factory farm crisis. I don't know about y'all, but I drove 4 hours round trip to be here today so my legislators can hear me loud and clear when I say Iowa needs a factory farm moratorium now. But Representative Fisher doesn't think that. Oh, no, no, no. Representative Fisher thinks a moratorium would be bad for Iowa. Now, that's not true. Legislators bought and sold by ALEC and Farm Bureau. Now, that's bad for Iowa. Representative Fisher won't even allow the factory farm issue to be debated. That's bogus. That's not how democracy works. So what are we going to do? We're going to stand up and we're going to fight back. We're going to use our people power. We're going to make sure we are represented in this building. Representative Fisher wasn't elected to represent Farm Bureau's pocketbook. He was elected to represent Iowans. So let's hold him accountable. Let's make sure he knows Iowans demand a moratorium on factory farms. Let's make sure he assigns our bill to a subcommittee ASAP. Are y'all cool with that? Sweet, sweet. So we have until March 8th to get our moratorium bill into a subcommittee. So let's make it happen. Let's hold Representative Fisher's feet to the fire every single day until he does his job and represents the people of Iowa. Enough is enough. It's time for a moratorium, and it's time for Representative Fisher to schedule this bill for a subcommittee.
All right, well that concludes our press conference for today. I think we've all got our marching orders from Emma, right? So we're going to call Representative Fisher, we're going to visit Representative Fisher, because what do we want? A subcommittee? When do we want it? Now! That's right! What do we want? A moratorium? When do we want it? Now! Moratorium! Now! Moratorium! Now! Moratorium! Now! Moratorium! Now! All right, let's go! Okay.
Thanks for watching. I wrote a zine. It's about Big Ag and CAFOs in Iowa from an Indigenous perspective. I'll put the link in this live feed so that you can read more if you're interested about what's going on here. Truly, Iowa is Big Ag sacrifice zone, and 90% of this land is taken over by agriculture, mostly Big Ag, and it is the most biologically altered, colonized, whatever you want to call it, state in the country. It no longer looks how it used to look. It used to start at the Mississippi with woodland, transition to oak savanna and wetland, and then into tall grass prairie. And that is not here anymore. It's gone. The Iowa landscape is just fields of crops interspersed with some small bunches of trees. And the amount of land that is actually cared for to keep the biological diversity going by the DNR is only about 0.5% of the land base here. 0.5, yeah. 0.5% is actually like safeguarded, if you will. And all of these little safeguarded areas are interspersed throughout the entire state, so they're not connected, so animals can't, get together. Animals are having trouble crossing the state in some cases. We've had a decline in the bug population. There are some ducks that are dying because when they're flying through the state, there's nothing for them to eat or to even land in. It's a really big issue, and it's really well hidden by Big Ag's propaganda that farming is wholesome and that it's a family-orientated industry, but it's not in Iowa anyway. So factory farms have to go. I'm sorry, this current economy, but you're gonna have to change. I'm breaking up with you. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, everybody.